By the end of 2011, Troy Tulowitzki was the most dominant shortstop in all of baseball. He had the ability to hit 30 home runs a season, make plays in the field you never imagined were possible, and he helped lead the Rockies to their first ever World Series appearance. Because of this, he was rewarded with a massive 10-year, $157 million extension to make him a Rocky lifer, but as we all know, the latter part of his career took a steep turn. This is the story of Troy Tulowitzki, the incredible success he found, and the tragic injuries that derailed his Hall of Fame career. Tulo played college ball at California State University, Long Beach, a Division I baseball program that has produced some great talent in the past such as Jason Giambi, Evan Longoria, and many more star MLB players. And unlike those names, this is where Tulo continued to develop and harness his ability. During his 3-year collegiate career, he played in 155 games, managing a .310 average, 57 extra base hits, and 117 RBIs. He was also a 2-time All-Big West selection as well as an All-Regional Tournament selection twice, helping him gain nationwide attention as one of MLB's premier draft prospects. Baseball America even stated prior to the 2005 draft that he is a top defender who has adjusted well to the speed of the game. He has an above-average arm and good footwork. He has added 35 to 40 pounds since enrolling at Long Beach, giving him a stronger body and the chance to be an offensive shortstop. And because of the major strides he took in the college game, he was a consensus top pick heading into the draft, and in the end, the Colorado Rockies took him 7th overall, signing him to a $2.3 million bonus. At the time of his selection, the Rockies were still struggling to find their footing, only posting 4 seasons above a .500 winning percentage after being inaugurated in 1993. But regardless of this, Tulo was over the moon to be in an MLB organization, and there seemed to be equal understanding between him and the team that he was close to big league action, with his agent stating they felt as though he would be up with the big league roster sometime the following year, and they were right. After less than a full season's worth of games in the minors, he made his MLB debut in late August, and at the time of his promotion, the club was sitting 61-71, 13th out of 16 teams in the National League, with their shortstop Clint Barmes struggling, to put it lightly. In 131 games, he hit just .220 with a .598 OPS and 47 OPS plus at the hitters-friendly Coors Field. To put that number in perspective, his 47 figure ranked as the lowest in all of baseball, so it was clear the club needed a bump in production at the shortstop position, and Tulo was the perfect guy to take the job. And while he did struggle at the plate with a .240 average and 609 OPS, he showed signs of excellence, especially on the defensive side, where he inserted himself as one of the game's best defenders immediately, which meant regardless of his offensive struggles, he already had an edge over Barmes heading into spring training 2007, and after he posted a .321 average as well as an .813 OPS in 18 games, he took home the team's spring training MVP award, while Barmes struggled, hitting just .229 with a .596 OPS, helping Tulo win the everyday shortstop job, and he never looked back. In fact, his 2007 season is still to this day one of the greatest in Rockies history. On April 29th, he turned just the 13th unassisted triple play in MLB history. Then later in the season, he became a main contributor in the Rockies' late resurgence in the playoff race by posting a .312 average and .935 OPS in his final 58 games of the season. A huge improvement from his first 97 games when he hit .277 with a .777 OPS. And to go along with this, defensively, he continued to shine. In terms of defensive WAR, he posted 3.9, the 33rd best mark in MLB history. Additionally, in defensive runs saved, he posted 31, the 7th highest single season tally since the stat became official back in 2003. So when we couple his defensive ability with his above average bat, the end product is 6.8 WAR. Looking league-wide, this was the 9th best figure among field players, but he did this in his first full season. And in terms of other rookies, his 6.8 mark ranks as the 11th best in MLB history. Not too bad. And even though the 2007 season didn't finish with the Rockies hoisting the World Series trophy, it was nonetheless a great first full season in the majors for Tulo, which resulted in him receiving a 6-year, $31 million extension prior to the 2008 season, something unheard of during that era of baseball. For reference, it became the largest contract ever given to a player before they hit 2 years of service time at the majors. This signing also meant that the Rockies fans, who had witnessed a struggling franchise for the entirety of the club's history, were finally witnessing their team with stars plugged up and down their lineup. And it definitely helped that throughout the early parts of this new deal, Tulo continued to enjoy immense success, especially between 2009 to 2011, which was undoubtedly the prime of his career. During this time, he was the best shortstop in the game. In terms of home runs, no one came close to his 89 figure, with the man in second place 34 behind him and third place 41. He also led in OPS Plus at 133, 5 more than second place Hanley Ramirez, and finally, in terms of WAR, he had the most at 19.4, with the difference between him and second place Alexi Ramirez about the same as him and 21st place Alcides Escobar, proving that there were no shortstops anywhere close to his level. And because of this, he started to gain more league-wide attention, finishing top 8 in MVP voting all 3 years, as well as the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger award in the final 2. Yeah, it was safe to say he was the best shortstop in all of baseball, and when looking at career stats for shortstops through their age 26 season, we can uncover just how dominant the start to his career truly was. In terms of home runs, he posted the 8th most in MLB history, only being bested by some of the greatest to ever do it. This is once again the case in terms of isolated power, where he finishes with the 6th highest, and finally in terms of WAR, 16th at 26.6. Showing that he was not only dominant compared to league-wide production, but also in terms of MLB history. And because of this, the Rockies looked to keep him in the Rocky Mountain State for as long as possible, ultimately signing him to a 7-year, $134 million extension on top of the 3 years remaining on his deal. This meant in total, it was worth 10 years, $157 million, the 8th most expensive contract in MLB history at the time. The idea behind this extension was to make Tulo a lifer, with him now under contract through 2020, aka his age 35 season. And with the promises by the front office to continue to build around him, the sky was the limit for not only Tulo, but the Rockies organization as a whole. But as we all know, the latter part of his career was as far from ideal as possible. But before we dive deep into it, let me ask you, are you a shorter guy that can't find comfortable and affordable clothes? Well, then look no further than today's sponsor, Under 510 Clothing. Under 510 is a men's clothing brand that specializes in providing high quality pants, t-shirts, polos, and many more for all us shorter guys out there. And by clicking the link in the description, you get a $10 coupon to their website, where they have a wide selection, with my personal favorite at the moment being their athletic t-shirts. And with summer now officially here, as well as this great offer, it is the perfect time to upgrade your wardrobe with Under 510. Alright, thank you Under 510 for sponsoring this video. Now back to the content. In 2012, he dealt with injuries right off the bat, getting plunked by former teammate Ubaldo Jimenez on the arm, seemingly on purpose, as the two had bad blood after he left the club. This was less than 1 week before the regular season kicked off, but thankfully it did not result in him missing time. But on May 30th against the Baltimore Orioles, he injured his groin while running to first base on an infield groundout, resulting in surgery, ending his season after just 47 games. Then the following year, on June 13th, he suffered a fractured right rib against the Nationals, holding him out for about a month. And while his lack of availability most certainly affected him mentally, he was able to use it as fuel for 2014. In fact, he was the best player in baseball. Through the first 91 games of the season, his entire slash line was the highest mark in the league, except for slugging percentage, where he ranked 3rd. But regardless, Tulo was kicking his game into second gear, with by far the greatest start to his season in his career. However, on July 20th, everything changed, as he injured his left hip, requiring surgery once again, keeping him out for the rest of the season. But this wasn't your typical season-ending surgery, because it was used as a way to help take care of his body and prevent further injuries. In an article posted by Thomas Harding on August 13, 2014, it is stated the procedure will help put an end to a series of leg muscle injuries that have hampered the last 7 years of his career. It is further mentioned, since suffering a torn left quadriceps early in 2008, Tulowitzki has been compensating for left leg muscles that haven't fired properly since. Now, he wasn't the only Rockies player to miss time in 2014, as Tyler Chatwood underwent Tommy John surgery, Brett Anderson had back surgery, Ulysse Shashin had a right rotator cuff strain, and Carlos Gonzalez had knee problems, causing the club to go from potential playoff threat at 22-14 to 66-96 by the season's end, the second worst record in all of baseball. And because of their disastrous finish to the season, as well as just a 43-55 record to start 2015, the Rockies front office explored possibilities of shedding payroll, with Tulo the prime candidate to be dealt. However, this was kept in the dark, and when it was announced he'll be a Toronto Blue Jay right before the deadline in 2015, not only were fans across the sport in shock, Tulo was as well. Let me explain to you how this went down. Tulo made it very clear that if a trade were going to happen, that he wanted to be kept in the loop, something general manager Jeff Bridich made sure of. However, after helping the Rockies take the lead in the top of the 9th inning against the Cubs on July 27th, he did not take the field in the bottom half of the inning. Instead, he was ushered into manager Walt Weiss's office and listened to Bridich inform him that he was traded to Toronto, something he did not take lightly, and stated this after arriving in Toronto. All I wanted was to be informed and not be caught off guard, and I was caught off guard. They always told me, hey, we're going to inform you, you're going to know exactly what's going on. If anything were ever to get close, we'll let you know. All I wanted was them to be honest with me, and that didn't happen, and that's why I was so upset. I didn't have anything against this place, I was just shocked. This was a bittersweet end to his Rockies career because for the previous decade he embodied what it meant to don the purple and black jerseys. In 2007, he helped take the club to their first World Series appearance in a month referred to as Rocktober in baseball history. Additionally, he made it known to everyone how much he loved playing for the club and how he wanted to be a lifer in Colorado. But baseball is a business. You can create friendships all you want. The front office is always going to think of their players as pawns in their game of chess against other front offices, and the Rockies decided it was time to move on from their club icon. When he arrived in Toronto, the club sat 50-51, a few games back of the playoff picture. But they had the stars to compete in the postseason, such as Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion, Josh Donaldson, and after the trade deadline, 2 new key pieces in David Price and Tulo. These new additions helped ignite the club, who soared from 50-51 in the first 101 games of the season to 93-69 by the end of the year, helping them take home their first division crown since they won the World Series back in 1993. And while Tulo wasn't his typical self down the stretch, hitting .239, he came up with a few clutch moments in the playoffs, such as Game 3 of the ALDS, down 2-0 against the Texas Rangers.
Playoff pitch, and Tulowitzki with a drive, deep left field, and gone!
He's still Troy Tulowitzki. Forget the numbers. That's a bad man.
He's still Troy Tulowitzki. Forget the numbers. That's a bad man. It could be that I'm a Toronto fan, but that line from Harold Reynolds still gives me goosebumps to this day. And this wouldn't be the last time he came out clutch in the postseason, as he hit a 3-run homer in Game 3 of the ALCS, then a 3-run double on a 1-0 count against Kelvin Herrera in Game 5 to put the Jays up 5-0 while facing elimination. And in the end, they were eliminated by the eventual World Series champions, but it was an impressive season as a whole for the Jays, and in 2016, with the majority of their stars returning, they looked poised for another deep run. And as for Tulo, he looked to improve on his first stint with the Jays, which credit to him he did, but it wasn't anywhere close to his vintage self. It's especially clear when we see that he posted 3.2 WAR in 131 games. Solid, don't get me wrong, but when looking at his career when he posted at least 131 games, it was by far the lowest mark of his career. And to go along with this, the injuries just kept piling on. In 2016, he missed 20 games due to a right quad strain. In 2017, he missed 31 due to a hamstring issue, and then later in the season, he sprained his right ankle while running to first base, causing ligament damage and ending his season in July. And just when most thought it couldn't get worse, in 2018 he was diagnosed with a bone spur in his ankle, requiring yet another surgery, costing him the entire season, which meant in total he played in just 197 out of a possible 486 games from 2016 to 2018. And the man who brought him in, Alex Anthopoulos, was no longer in charge in Toronto. Instead, it was Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, and they looked to tear down their aging core in hopes of starting fresh a few years later. So gone went David Price to the Boston Red Sox, Jose Bautista to 60% of the NL East, Edwin Encarnacion as well as Josh Donaldson to Cleveland, and finally Troy Tulowitzki to free agency after being released by the club prior to the 2019 season. It was not the way most anticipated his Blue Jays tenure to go, as he posted just a 93 OPS plus in 238 total games, but despite this, he continued to be elite with the glove, meaning he was still valuable to a major league team. And that ended up being the New York Yankees, who needed a shortstop while Didi Gregorius was still recovering from Tommy John surgery. This was it. He was finally healthy, had a fresh slate with a new club, and the starting shortstop role out of spring training. This was also a full circle moment for Tulo, as he got to be the opening day shortstop for the New York Yankees, something his idol Derek Jeter used to do for the greater part of 2 decades. And while he would go on to perform well in his first few games, showcasing his trademark defense and power, he was unfortunately sidelined less than a week into the season. At this point, Tulo had been dealing with injuries every single year for about a decade. Because of this, he couldn't take it anymore and retired with some words to say.
There came a point in time this year after I'd strained my calf. It just wasn't as enjoyable as it once was, because I couldn't do some of the things work-wise that I had done before.
It's hard to think what his career may have been if not for injuries, because you can't help but think of Cooperstown and one of the greatest shortstops in the history of the sport. But regardless, he made a long-lasting impact on the game of baseball, from his incredible leadership, his desire to perfect even the most minor of details in his craft, and his overall love of the game.